back. Um, man. So, got a couple of new books. Um, I want to try them out. So, I got a new book called Ethical Password Cracking. I figured we spend some time on password cracking because, I mean, why not? You know what I mean? If you are going to be able to uh, get some valuable information or hack into a system or whatnot, I think it's very important that you need to learn how to you know crack the passwords you get, all right, or the encrypted or hashed passwords you get, and you need to know basically how it all works and what tools you're going to use, um, how they're hashed, what salting is. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you can learn step by step that'll help you when you're, if you get a job in pen testing, or you get a job in ethical hacking or whatnot. Or I mean, if you just want to know as a hobby, which I think is the greatest motivation of all time, which is what I call self learning. And you just want to be a badass and just be an unsung hero or whatnot. And you would like to know more about password cracking and how it actually works and how hackers are doing it. And maybe if you and you don't care about getting a job or whatnot, I don't care. I found this book by Pact. Now I like Pact. Um, every book I've gotten that was written by Pact, I wouldn't say everyone. There's a couple that I didn't like, but I would say 80 to 90% of the books I get by Pact are great books. They're well written. They're they get good reviews for the most part. I've, like I said, had about 80 to 90% positive reviews on anything written by Pact for cybersecurity. So yeah, Pact, and go check Pact out. Also, Pact usually gives you a PDF or a digital copy of the book if you buy a regular copy. So that's cool. So if you buy a printed book and it comes in the mail and it's a physical copy, in that book you'll have a download to this digital copy. So you get this for free. Usually in most Pact books. Also, Pact has a huge library and it's all digital. So if you go to like Pact, we'll read it. It'll tell you in this book. If you go to like Pact.com or whatever, you can buy all these books straight from Pact.com in the digital version or the physical version, wherever. And they've got a huge library of different stuff. So what I want to do is I want to do this for a minute. I'm very interested in it, in ethical password cracking. Now, I've done some password cracking, but not in detail and not for a long duration. And I think it's a cool skill to have, and it's a cool skill to know about. So if you do, let's say, get a job or something like that, and you're on the red team or whatever, maybe they'll say, hey, do you know how to do some password cracking? You can say, yeah, no, I do. I'm going to say, all right, well, here, take this hash or whatever, and I need you to try to crack it. Go see if you can or whatever, and then so you'll have a kind of a clue, or you'll have an idea and some practical experience in doing it. You won't be clueless, like and then won't have to research it. You'll have went through this book at the very least, and be like, oh, okay, at least I know where to start. I've used this tool and this tool. And you got to remember, when you hit that real world, stuff might be different. Everything's gonna be different. Maybe stuff might be the same. Somebody might be using a different tool that's you've never heard about and stuff, but it's all going to be basically the same concept, right? All right, so let's move on. Let's, like we always do, we're going to start with the cover. So, ethical password cracking. Decode passwords using John the Ripper, Hashcat, and advanced methods for password breaking by James Leyte-Vidal. Leyte-Vidal? We tried. All right. And this is fairly new. So this was written last year. Okay. So this is going to be up to date for the most part, right? But that's what my channel is about. You're going to get these books that are out. They say they're up to date, but they might be outdated. So this was published about 6 months ago in July 2024. So should be up to date, right? And I went through this book a little bit because with this, I already know a prerequisite on password cracking is that it uses a lot of CPU and a lot of actually, it uses and it's going to tell you in this book, it uses CPU, RAM, and all that stuff, and graphics, right? So if you got a good graphics card and all that, you can do more password cracking. But this is on a VM. I'm going to do it on a VM. So I looked through kind of this book. It doesn't have, I don't think it's going to actually have us try to crack some very hard passwords. I'm thinking that I'm going to have to create my own, do my own stuff, and then I'm going to have to improvise to actually learn something in this book, I think, because I was going through it. I don't think you're downloading practice passwords, or I don't think they set you up like that. So this is more teaching you about password cracking and in the main part of it, like how Linux hashes them and salts them, and what is even salting hashes and stuff like that. So, which is great. And then we're creative, so we figure out how to do all this on our own. Okay. But so I'm gonna do this all in a VM, right? I'm not gonna do this on I don't want to put bare bones on my PC. And what I mean by bare bones is like putting in bare bones Kali Linux, because I can't. If I do that, then I'm gonna have to figure out if I can get Clipchamp to run and all. I mean, that's just too much drama. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run all this on Kali Linux, and we're gonna try to make it the passwords easy to crack, but as long as we learn the concept, right? Because if you're working for a company and you're actually having to crack passwords, I'm sure they're gonna give you a badass computer to that has the power and the capabilities of cracking some hard passwords, right? That has some firepower in it, CPU and graphics and all that stuff. So I don't see, or if you're a hacker, then you already know that, or if you're gonna be a hacker or a pen tester or whatnot or whatever, you're gonna have to have some power. It always comes down to power, man. You can't use a hoverboard on water unless you have power. All right. So in this book, we will introduce you to the concepts behind password cracking, as well as make you familiar with the common tools used for the work. After that, we will examine common technologies where these tools may be needed and show you how to retrieve and crack hashes for those particular technologies. While not exhaustive, these examples of applications of tools will prepare you to deal with other types of password hashes you may work with later on. Who's this book for? This book is designed for those with an interest in password cracking. Well, obviously. But you do not necessarily need any experience. Now, see, they say that, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that's true. What do they put necessarily in there? You don't have no experience or any kind of computer or Linux experience or anything, you're going to be totally lost. You're not going to be able to get through this book. You got to start, baby. You got to start somewhere else. Or that's just, I don't think so. What this book covers. Okay, so we never do what the book covers because we're just going to go through it, right? But it's got password, Wi-Fi cracking right here too. That's what I'm interested in too. To get the most out of this book, you will need a working knowledge of Windows. See, and if you don't have experience in Windows, then I mean, why did they even put this, right? And Linux command line syntax, and common non-OS tools such as Git. And we all know how to use GitHub. If you don't, you need to look that up. Okay, software hardware covered in this book, operating system requirements. So we're gonna download Hashcat and John the Ripper. These come with Kali Linux, but we're gonna update them and all that crap, right? Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. Now, we're gonna go and learn about the Mac OS, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't have. I mean, there's no way for me to do that because I'm on a Windows and a Linux machine, right? VM. So we're gonna read the Mac OS, but we're not gonna be able to demonstrate them because I don't, until I get some kind of recording or something that's all three capable, where I can get videos on all three, and I'm gonna do some research on that. All right, and here's a disclaimer. This disclaimer, I like to say too. So the information within this book is intended to be used only in ethical manner. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. So, we, like I said, and I always say, you don't want to go and use anything you learn in my videos for the dark side. And if you do, then you just you're gonna do at your own discretion. If you get caught, you're gonna go to jail or you're gonna get in trouble, and just gonna bring a lot of bull crap upon yourself. So just everything I'm teaching you in these videos or everything you're learning or the resources stuff, use it for the better, right? All right, conventions used. Sometimes I like to go through this, but they're all the same. They're all the same. This basically tells you how to read the book. Okay, so we usually can figure it out without having to read this. So I'm gonna skip that. Get in touch. If you want to get in touch, you can. They always have that here. Share your thoughts. Download a free PDF copy of this book. I give them all that. If you want to become an author, is a topic. So eventually one day I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do my own pack book or something or whatever, right? And here's the packed free link ebook. Submit your proof of purchase. Blah blah. Introduction and setup. I'm just gonna go through this book, and we're gonna run through. Unless it says it wants to set up a VM, I have videos that helps you set up VMs in my series, in the ethical hacking book series. Like I said, I think I made another one that I posted that you can, without going through the ethical hacking book series, you can. I guess it's in like cyber topics or something, but I might have to make another video. But for now, we're gonna go through like the setup of this stuff, even though it's already set up in my Kali Linux. In this part, we will introduce you to the concepts behind password cracking, alternative means to achieve your goals such as OSINT, and how to set up and configure your cracking environment. Remember OSINT? You don't know what it is? Google it. This part has the following chapters. OSINT is just open source intelligence stuff that you can get off the internet, okay? Deep dive into it, Google it. This part has the following chapters. Chapter 1, password storage, math, probability, and complexity. Now, we're probably going to skip this, right? We'll see. Chapter 2, why crack when OSINT will do. Okay, and that's true. Setting up the password cracking environment. No, we might have to skip the VM on this because I already have mine. Chapter 4, John and Hashcat rules. That's the basic rules. Password storage, math, probability, and complexity. Password cracking has become a stored element of the information security testing, from the days of utilities such as Cain and Abel to more modern tools such as Hashcat. While the tools and techniques have changed over the years, the principles behind password cracking remain largely unchanged. Password cracking has evolved many, and that's another reason it remained largely unchanged. So you can study this book and it'll last for a while, right? From recovering access to a system after the user has left the company to penetration testing and red team use cases, where we use password cracking to prove or disprove the security of our access control mechanisms. In this chapter, we're going to cover the following main topics. What is password cracking? What are passwords stored and how are passwords stored and used? Why are some passwords easier to crack than others? These are very important. What is password cracking? Password cracking is the process of recovering a secret. Come on, man. Secret from scrambled, typically encrypted or hashed text. This very broad term encompasses many types of password storage and scramblings. As such, not all password cracking operations are created equal. Some passwords, as well as methods of password storage, are easier to crack than others. We will discuss this more throughout the book. Password cracking can be broken down into various approaches to attempt to recover the secret: dictionary based, combination, brute force, hybrid, partial knowledge, known as mask attacks. Let's discuss each of these in turn. Dictionary based attacks. Dictionary based attacks, as you might have guessed based on the name, use a lot of words or phrases as password candidates. The potential password we will test it to see if it's the correct password. This list is informally referred to as dictionary. Even though it may or may not contain dictionary words, the word list may not resemble a dictionary much at all. In this term, it is mostly a holdover to earlier times when many passwords were based on dictionary words. Before password complexity requirements such as adding uppercase letters, numbers, symbols, passwords were common. Speaking of complexity requirements, it seems like traditional dictionary words would not be effective as password candidates during a password cracking operation due to complexity requirements becoming more commonplace. We'll address that in the upcoming sections. Constructing a word list from a dictionary for a dictionary attack can be simple or time-consuming effort. However, in many cases, spending time upfront for a good word list tailored to your target may reap dividends at cracking time. So, dictionary-based password text. So what we're going to do is, they're going to tell you right now. So we're going to use OSINT, and let's say our target is somebody on Facebook. Okay, that we're or whatever. With the company. I'm just going to say this: the person we're targeting. Right, we're gonna look them up. We're gonna find all kinds of open source intelligence. We want to know their Facebook. We want to know their everything that we can that's out there, free and legal to look up on Google. Right, it's called Google Dorking or whatever. Then once we get all that information, we want to try to get on, be a friend with them if we can. Let them accept our friend request. Who knows, right? Maybe their Facebook is open. Maybe their Instagram is open, and they're posting a lot of pictures of their dog Ginger. And they're posting a lot of pictures of their nephew, and they're saying his name on there, which I don't recommend that for anybody. You try to be discreet, but you can't. Not a lot of people care about all that stuff because they're not targets, right? So, but if you're somebody of an importance and you work for an important company or whatever, you can't be frivolous with all your information, right? But the average Joe, who cares? Anyways, so you're gonna get all this stuff, and you're gonna make a word list. You're gonna put Ginger 123 or whatever, and you're gonna make a word list. Where they were born, their favorite foods, all that stuff. That's what that is. Okay, you're gonna use that to try to crack their passwords and whatnot. Okay, the trade-off here is that your word list may not be reusable for other password cracking situations. See, it's because it's customized, right? To help build a word list, Chapter 2, Why Crack When OSINT Will Do. A good and friendly large word list to start with is often the Rocky word list. Now, this Rocky word list, this is named after the breach of the Rock U company in 2009, where 32 million user credentials were exposed. While available in several places on the internet, a common location to download Rocky lists is GitHub, blah blah, and you guys can pause it and do that. I've got it. Kali Linux has the Rocky list already in it, but it's got, like I said, it's got 32 million passwords in it, or 14 million. This list contains over 14 million unique password candidates and is also included in many common penetration tests. Okay, so background on this. Okay, what RockU is basically the hackers hacked this database, right? The RockU, I guess, company, whatever they said, database, and they got millions of people's username or passwords a long time ago. So I don't know what year. Yeah, 2009. So in 2009, okay, think about that year and all that stuff. A lot of people companies and everything were not putting in password regulations back then, for sure. Okay, and so people were coming. They had free reign to come up with any password, and then they probably didn't have to change it, or if they did change it, they could use the same one over and over again. And so, okay, think about the power of that. Now you got to think. This is where, if you want to hack, if you want to pen test, if you want to think about the real world, the average person without any cybersecurity training is going to use the easiest and most common password that they can think of, that's in there, that they'll never forget. So what are the top ones? Like love. Somebody put, capital LOVE, love 123. Password. People will use PASSWORD 123. Hate, HATE 123. Their last name, Smith 123 or something. You know what I mean? And so, sex. So people will use these passwords, especially back then, over and over again and whatever, and so that's just raw human social engineering, human error. Okay, and so that's why this Rocky word list is so powerful, because it's got millions of just people coming out raw with what, the average password that can be cracked. Nowadays, in 2009, it was bad. So nowadays it's gotten better because companies will not let them do that, right? It's part of their cyber infrastructure, part of their policies and procedures and safeguards that so you can't use the same one. It has to be so and so characters long, and it has to have a apostrophe, or it has to have an exclamation mark. You get what I'm saying? So now if somebody was to hack that and those passwords, it'll work. Those passwords, that a list like that would be cool now too. So I would say every now, if somebody wanted to hack and get 14 million sane passwords, 14 million passwords of this era, be more accurate. So you'd be able, it'd be a updated badass word list, because it's gonna have all the new. So people are gonna take those new guidelines. Think about this. They're gonna take those new guidelines, and they're just gonna try to simplify it as much as they can. So they're all gonna. It might be like password, or they can't do that anyways. You can't do it in a row. But you get what I'm trying to say. They're gonna use the simplest, easiest thing to remember when they're even following those guidelines too. So that would be a cool. Hopefully somebody. Well, not hopefully, but that would be terrible, right? If they hacked 14 million updated 2025 passwords with all the stuff on it. All right, anyways. So combination attacks. Combination attacks take two word lists as inputs and concatenate or append them together one password candidate from each list to create the password. Candidates for testing purposes. Candidate for testing purposes. For example, one word might contain the word word and the other word 2, while the second word list might contain the words word 3 and 4. In this scenario, a combination attack would use a word from both lists to create potential passwords candidates would use. we use such as word 1, word 3, word 1, word 4, word 2, word 3, word 2, word 4, and so on. So it's taking things and just sticking them together from different lists, and then it keeps trying that iteration. Current guidance from the National Institute of Technology, Standards of Technology, or NIST. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's important. Uh, I might have to start putting buzzwords in here for people to know. Like these are all buzzwords too. You need to know, this dictionary base, combination, brute force. I mean, these are buzzwords, right? You should go and do research, but we're going to do the research here in the book. But the most important things, like this is you need to know about NIST. Okay, recommends password length over complexity for the best resistance to password cracking. This helps encourage our users to create passwords that is easy to remember but hard to crack, and reflects the current guidance from NIST. And that's what I was talking about. This can be performed by stringing several dictionary words together and adding mnemonic to help the user remember the password. This is only one approach, but the example points out, in conjunction with the current NIST guidance, that combination approaches to the password cracking may be more effective as more users follow the guidance to shift to paraphrases. So, what I would recommend is you always put in your multi-factor and you always do all that stuff, right? Another thing is, don't put your phone number and all that stuff out there. Everybody does. I probably do too. I don't know. But when you're doing your passwords, I recommend making a long password using like a sentence. Okay. Now this is something that you know, what was his name? I can't remember his name. He died. Anyways, Kevin Mitnick. So Kevin Mitnick, I think it was Kevin Mitnick. Yeah, he only, if you don't know who he is, look up Kevin Mitnick. He's a badass. A lot of people don't like him because there's, his books are like reading a novel. And all. Who cares? That's what's funny is he did all that. So it's like reading a novel. It's not realistic. It is realistic. He literally did all that. He was running from the FBI. Kevin Mitnick ran from the FBI, and he was using all kinds of different tactics to hack into their systems, using backdoors, passwords that they didn't want to change. He was using all the common sense tactics to hacking, and you can't disregard that, right? Everybody's all these tools and stuff, but he was using his imagination and his own techniques on how to hack into stuff, and he was using social engineering. He was using, all kinds of password, basic password hacks and exploitations and stuff like that, exploits. And he's the one that said, if you're gonna make a password, try to make a long sentence, right? And then change the and do. But so that's easy to remember, and it's hard to crack. So if I have a password, like that literally says, "One day I want $1 million," right? One day I want $1 million. And then that's a long password. You're never gonna forget that. Like, what's your password? Well, in your mind, you're gonna go. It's a sentence is easier to remember than anything else. One day I want $1 million. Boom. Um, change the capital, lowercase on every on every new word or something, and that's it. Boom. Put a exclamation mark and a question mark at the end, and that's it. You're done, or something, whatever, right? Because they're gonna make you do all that too. So that's it. That's what I would recommend. That's the easiest. And this one says, follow the guidance to shift the passphrases. I would just, if passphrases, I would just use a sentence, okay, of something that. But then you got to be careful, because then if you're always saying that sentence in all your social media and all that stuff, then they're gonna say, that's probably his password. Oh yeah, look. So don't let people know about any your sentence, right? Anyways, that being said, some standards some standards may be slow to adopt of longer, less complex passphrases. For example, the payment card industry data security standard PCI DSS standard, and that's another buzzword you need to look up. Um, which is required for merchants processing credit card data. Requires 12 character passwords as well as letters and numbers for passwords associated with accounts that have access to the cardholder data. So this one has its own standards, right? Brute force attacks. Brute force attacks do exactly what their name suggests. Every position in the password candidate is filled with every possible candidate for that position. For example, if a password can only be 8 characters long, a brute force approach might attempt A, and then set the pass as the password candidate, then attempt A, and so on until the possibilities for the password are all attempted and exhausted. The, the problem with this approach is that once a password reaches any reasonable length, the time to perform this style of attack becomes unattainable. Additionally, the number of character sets available to use for the password, lowercase, uppercase, numbers, and symbols, will also greatly increase the number of guesses to complete this kind of attack. The good news for password cracking is that it is possible to crack any password with this approach. However, the amount of time it would take with today's computing power makes essentially folly for large passwords are complex, more time consuming for each password guess algorithms. Now, this brute force password cracking is good for like 4 number passwords, maybe. Um, and if somebody, it's if it's easy, if they made an easy password and there's only 4, I mean, it's going to run through every iteration a little bit faster. But do you see that where you need to have computing or graphics power, right, to do all this, CPU power, all that stuff? So, I mean, you're gonna have to have a powerful rig. Hybrid attacks. Hybrid attacks merge some of the characteristics of combination attacks and brute force attacks. So, combination attack was right here, which takes one from one list, one from another, and then a brute force. A hybrid attack uses a word list as its base, then modifies the word in the word list by adding 1 or more characters. So, for instance, love, 1, 2, 3, or whatever. Characters to the word and brute force in the character space associated with that. As an example, let's say I have the following word from a word list: banana. However, I know the password policies of my target requires a number in every password. And that's another thing. Getting the password policies right would be another task. I might try a hybrid attack that takes my word from a word list and adds a number after the word. So now my password candidates are as follow: banana 1, banana 2, banana 3, banana 4. This allows us to test environments more effectively when users often append, add to the end, or prepend, add to the beginning, some base dictionary words for their passwords. See, that's why I like packed. See how packed, if you don't know what append means, it tells you. You don't know what prepend means, it tells you. I like that about packed. Okay. Partial knowledge, also known as mask attacks. Mask attacks, and these are all buzzwords, leverage the idea that we partially understand the format used to construct a password to create a brute force like approach that is sped up due to assumptions we make about passwords formats. An example will be helpful here. Let's say that we are testing passwords for a company that requires 1 uppercase character, 1 lowercase character, and a number for their passwords. Okay, this is a common password complexity requirement in many companies, and many users will meet this requirement by taking a word, dictionary, or otherwise, capitalizing the first letter of the word, and then appending 1 or 2 numbers to the word. Incidentally, this type of password requirement, along with 90-day password rotation intervals, can lead to a dreaded season year password, where users will set their password to the name of the current season, spring, summer, and so on. I didn't think about that. And append a 2 or 4 digit year to the password. Spring 22, spring 22. Man, that's true. And so on. These complexities, requirements made. See, and that's what I was talking about. They're gonna make it easy. This is what he's talking about. How people are gonna take their requirements and make them easier for them to remember, right? This is what it's talking about. These complexities requirements may lead us to construct a mask for the password that assumes the user will choose a password that starts with a capital letter, then have 5 or 6 characters of lower letters, and ends with two digits from base 10 numbering 0 to 9. This mask will attempt to brute force any passwords meeting these lengths and criteria. While this is not While this will not retrieve every password in a given list, this approach historically yields high percentage of cracked passwords since this approach is common one for users take when constructing passwords. Important note, we will suggest better methods for password construction and mitigations in Chapter 11. How are passwords stored and used? This is very important. While it may seem simple how a password is stored on a system, can have a huge effect on its ability to be recovered via password cracking operations and how long it will take. If you don't always need to crack, wait, you don't always need to crack. Most passwords are stored in an authentication system via some process that renders the password difficult to recover. However, it is not unheard of to come across systems that do not protect user credentials appropriately. You may recall that earlier in this chapter we discussed the RockU breach. In this case, RockU, the company, stored user passwords in plain text. That's another buzzword. No hashing or encryption, which made recovering user passwords trivial. This meant that once user passwords were made publicly available, they were completely exposed. No password cracking or other complex operations were required. They were simply there for the taking. Let's talk about the two types of responsible password storage that we typically see: hashing and encryption. So plain text means no hashing or encryption, right? So so back in those 2009, going back when I said that they had crappy cybersecurity standards, probably they were just storing their admins were storing their passwords of all their employees or whatever, 14 million or people that were logging into their RockU. I'm assuming RockU was like a RockU. I don't know. I have to do research on it, but I'm sure RockU was some kind of company that where people were entering usernames and passwords to get some kind of service online or something, right? I don't know. And they were just storing them in plain text where you could read them. So they stole the data file, the file that had all that, and then it was in plain text. They opened it, they were like, "Oh, we hit the damn mother load." But now they hash them and encrypt them. So even if they stole that, they would be hashed or encrypted. And then right now we're gonna learn about hashing and encryption. Okay. So hashing, the idea behind password hashing is to store the user's password so that it cannot be retrieved by anyone. There are several advantages to this approach. For the company that stores the password, this represents a strong level of due diligence and may provide some protections legally. Passwords cannot be reverted to plain text, the original password, from hash values, which means malicious insiders with access to password storage cannot retrieve the password. The existence of standard functions to perform this hashing in many application frameworks means it is easy to implement. Okay. At its core, hashing takes a string of plain text, the password. See, that's what I like about PAT, and converts it into a fixed length string of unreadable data. Okay. This value cannot be reverted to plain text, which is one of the core differences between hashing and encryption. Also, this hashing resource will always return the same value for the same input. This is known as being deterministic. Some types of hashing can also add a salt, which adds an additional entropy, randomness. God, I love packed. Yup. And you know what's funny? That's a physics word right there, entropy, and then they just put randomness. But they're using it in this case in encryption, in an encryption sense. So they do that a lot in cyber, right? To in a lot of everything. To the generation of the hash value. This salt will be different for every password, which can negate the effectiveness of pre-computation attacks, a type of attack that generates all possible hashes in advance of a cracking operation. You may have heard of rainbow tables. Okay, I'm sure they're gonna go over that a lot. That's a buzzword, which are one of the types of pre-computation attacks. Hashing algorithms vary in terms of numbers of rounds, hash operations used to create the hash to be stored, the output length, and several other factors. We will discuss various hashing algorithms later when we dive into the different types of password retrieval. So, a hash is I don't know if they said it right here. They're gonna take that plain text and they're gonna hash it into something else. Okay, and the hash uses if you want to go deeper into encryption and all that, it's gonna use I can't remember what it uses. It uses some certain kind of encryption that somebody came up with that um, encrypts it, or not encrypts it, it hashes it. Then, but it's never. It's all. It's that's it. So if somebody's password is password one, if it's password one exclamation mark, okay, it's gonna hash that, and that hash doesn't change. Okay, so then if somebody else uses password exclamation mark one and they hash it, it's gonna be exactly the same hash. Okay, as it's never gonna change. It's the same. Remember that. Okay, so it's gonna be the same hash. Okay, and that's why they came up with salting, where you can salt that hash and it adds a randomness of extra couple numbers or whatever to it, and that actually makes that hash a little bit more safer, right? So and that's what that rainbow tables are about. Watch, we're going to read here in a little bit. So just to give you kind of a concept of what hashing is. In the case of hashing, passwords are validated during the authentication process by taking the password from the user, hashing it, and comparing it against the stored hash. And so that's what's so good about it not changing. So when somebody has a password and it's password one exclamation mark and they make a hash, it's going to stay the same, right? Then they're going to store that hash, and then when somebody uses their password, it's going to hash it, and then it's going to compare that stored hash to what they just typed in, turn it into a hash, and if it's the same, then boom, they're going to let them in. Okay, that's all there is to it. That's it. So hashing is good for like password comparison. Okay. If they match, the password is correct. If they don't, the password that was entered was incorrect. Right? It's common sense. It's beautiful. Once again, hashing further protects the plaintext password during the process, ensuring the plaintext password is never handled by the system or hashing. So it never stores that plaintext or whatever, and then it turns it into a hash, and then it compares the hashes. Okay, that's the difference between encryption and hashing. Okay, and there's a lot more, but that's the basics of it. Encryption differs from hashing in that the ciphertext. I love how they put this definition here. The product of the encryption algorithm, okay, ciphertext, awesome, can be reversed back to its original plaintext, the password. To do this, one or more encryption keys must be generated and used for the encrypt and decrypt operations. Encryption has some liabilities for the use of password storage. Okay, the most prominent one is that the ciphertext is reversible, which means that the malicious insider or an external party can retrieve the plaintext password if they can obtain the ciphertext and the encryption keys. Additionally, because it is used to encrypt and decrypt operations, the keys must be retrievable, which further increases the potential for mishandling and or disclosure of the keys. Okay, so encryption uses keys, right? So you take a let's say you take a paragraph and you want to encrypt it. You're going to encrypt it using some kind of encryption algorithm, right? With whether it's um, I can't think. I can never remember Asamid or something. I can't remember ASA or RSA encryption, right? But I can't remember what it's called. The name. Anyways, so you're gonna use different. You could use different ways of encrypt it, right? Then it generates a key for you, and so depending on what kind of encryption you're using, there's a public key and then there's a private key, right? But it's going to create a key, and so the encryption is very difficult to teach, and it's very difficult to learn. Like there's this guy that worked for MIT that noticed that when he was teaching encryption to these are very intelligent people in MIT, half of them didn't understand how it worked or whatever. So he came up with a cool way to teach it, and I got a hold of his videos, and I was like, oh man, that's a good way to teach it. So, but that's going way beyond what I'm reading right here. So, what I'm saying is it uses keys. Okay, that's basically what it just said. Um, Easy, and I'm sure it's going to go deeper into it, right? Easy check for encryption as password hashing or worse. Have you ever forgotten a password and used a forgot password link or workflow in an application? Odds are you probably have. If you ever used the forgot password functionality and had your password sent to you via email or some clear text method, rather than being prompted to set a new password, this means that your password is stored on a system in an encrypted format. If password hashing was in use, they would not be able to retrieve your plain text password. Well, there's one other possibility. The system is storing your password in clear text, similar to the as Rocky did. We have seen how that is a very bad idea, but unfortunately, it is sometimes done. In the case of authentication with encrypted passwords, the ciphertext can be compared similar to authentication with hashing in use, or the password can be decrypted and compared to validate the password provided by the user. While encryption has been noted for completeness, it is not all optimal to use encryption for password storage and is not recommended in NIST 800 standards. Um, I cannot go deeper into that in the time of this video. Um, there's so much. Uh, so this is password cracking, and this book is going to focus on password cracking, and it's gonna give you a taste of encryption and hashing, just a taste. But it is so much more complex. You have to get another book on encryption, and then read that. And then I'm thinking about finding a great encryption book and going through it with you guys, because I think that encryption is an awesome thing to learn. And if you're doing your master's class or you're doing, or whatnot, then you're going to take some classes in encryption or something like that. And I think anybody that's interested in cybersecurity or anything like that needs to read a book on encryption. And it's a very difficult subject, but it's really cool, right? It's really cool. It's a really cool topic, and I've read some books on encryption, and I love it. Right? It's fascinating. These mathematicians and people that know all this math and all this methods and algorithms they're using to encrypt things. They're geniuses, and they're coming up with these ways and to encrypt data and then decrypt data, right? So it's just a cool topic. Okay, this ain't gonna go nowhere near that. Why are some passwords easier to crack than others? There are several reasons for this, but it boils down to one thing: how long it takes for a system to guess the password correctly. When we can create passwords that increase the amount of time this happens, we are creating passwords that is more difficult to crack. If we create passwords that decreases the amount of time needed for password guessing to be successful, we are creating passwords that are easier to crack. I mean, it's just common sense. It takes time to crack them. So, what are some of the factors that make a password easier or more difficult to crack? Some of the most important some of the most important are as follows: password length, we already went over that; password complexity, we already went over that; time to hash/crypt the password. Let's talk about each of these in turn. Password length. Password length is often thought about by the end user in terms of bare minimum. In other words, if a system requires an eight character password, at minimum, many users will select an 8 character password. At the time of writing, this maintains its password recommendations at an 8 character minimum. This is noted by the NIST Special Publications SP, this is another one, 853B, and is updated from time to time. However, NIST also notes the system should accept a password from the user of at least 64 characters. Jeez. Now that one's just going too far. I have no clue how you would remember that. Um, you know, that's a lot of characters. Um, let's think about the 8 character password for a moment. How many guesses would I need to make to determine someone's 8 character password? That depends on what it yeah. The answer, as with so many things in this information security, is that it depends. Yeah, it depends on what technique you're using. Let's start with a simple character set that consists of 26 lowercase letters in the English alphabet. The number of guesses required to be successful to determine this password is represented by x to the power of y, or xy, where x is the possible characters in each position of the password. And here's for all your mathematicians. I am not in love with math. I can do math because that's my job. And that's my statement, and I'm going to die by it. And y is the number of total characters in this password. For our 26 character lowercase password, which is 8 characters in length, it will take 26 to the power 8 guesses, or 208 million, or billion. Is that million? 827,060, yeah, it's billion. 208 billion, 827 million, 64,576 guesses. Jeez. Note that is the maximum number of guesses. This represents someone guessing every possible password, but only being successful on the last guess. This is a lot of possible guesses. But does this mean this password is secure? Again, it depends. How quickly can we try to guess and validate if it is or is not the password? Even milliseconds less or more per guess can have a large impact overall time to work through that possibility. What if we choose password length that is longer than the minimum recommendation of the NIST? What about 9 characters? The English alphabet has blah 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 blah, or 5 trillion, 429 billion, 503,786. Oh shit, I don't even know. That's a huge number. I think it's trillion. So wait, yeah, trillion, billion, million, thousand, hundreds. This is, as you might expect, 26 times more guessing than we needed to make our 8 character password. By the time we get to the 12th character password with our same 26 character set, we are looking at BAM, or BAM, also known as roughly 95 quadrillion. Yep, number of guesses required, blah blah. Visualizing this in a graph, we can see an exponential growth of guesses required for every character increase in the password length. Bam! And I think my password, let me see, is like 21 characters. I think my password I use for different things is from anywhere from 20 to 25 characters long. So mine is pretty uncrackable. I don't know. For those, yeah, I shouldn't say that. I'm just not gonna work. All right. For those building secure systems, this is good, and this means every character count when it comes to a password length. The longer the password is, the longer it will take to crack, and that the more secure resistance to cracking it is. All right, we got 5 more minutes. I want to see how long this chapter is. Time to hash encrypt the password. All right, we're almost done. Let's read through this, and then we got 5 minutes. Time to hash or encrypt the password. The third major factor in creating passwords that are resistant to cracking is not the selection of the password itself, but rather the computational operations to create the hash and how long they take. Think about the number of guesses required for the various type of passwords we discussed earlier. Each of these guesses takes a non-zero amount of time to perform. We must calculate the hash for that password candidate and then compare it against the known hash to see if they match, meaning our password candidate is our password, right? If this operation takes a full second instead of half a second, the overall time for cracking process is doubled. In reality, guesses will occur much faster than that, but for the sake of the illustration, you can see how that makes a huge difference against the number of guesses we're dealing with in these scenarios. Hashing algorithms are designed to be fast. Hashing is a common computational operations of comparisons, and we want them to be fast. However, we want password hashing specifically to be slow. We want it to be slow as we can reasonably to get away with. The slower the password hashing operation, the more resistant the implementation will be to cracking by making each attempt more computationally expensive. Password hashing algorithms such as PBKF2 use common hashing algorithms such as SHA-512, that's another buzzword, but run many rounds of that hashing algorithm to increase the time to create the password hash. While increasing time per hash will result in a slower cracking operation, the cracker can attempt to offset this by increasing the number of hashes they perform per second, either by increasing the computational power used by the cracking process or distributing the load to cracking operations across multiple computational engines. Part 2, password cracking types of approaches. We will look at the overall speed and various cracking operations based on the types of hashes we are cracking. A word on ethical password cracking. Regardless of approach, the objective of this book is to help you with the tools and techniques you need to recover passwords. Whether you're in a penetration testing, red team operations, or recovering a password of a user backup or someone who has fortunately passed away or anything in between, the important caveat here is that this book focuses on ethical password cracking. You already said that, okay? The purpose of this book is not to help you circumvent laws or perform illegal activities. Rather, its purpose is to give you what you need to be successful in pointing out in penetration testing engagements or other approved means to enable your business. We already know this, okay? But what's funny is that you can have government agencies that are doing this all the time, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. So they should have put that little added caveat in there. How about that? Please, because that really annoys me. Hey, don't you people don't break the law. But us people up here, they can and get away with it and do whatever we want to do. We can do it, but you guys don't do it. I mean, nobody should be breaking the law, right? Not just the people at the top that think they can, right, and get away with it, but they do. But I can't stand that. Nobody should be doing that, but they can. Alright, summary. In this chapter, we introduce you to the concept of password cracking, the various types of cracking attacks, how passwords are stored and used, and how some of the reasons behind what makes a stronger password. With this, you have laid the groundwork to getting started with various types of password cracking. However, it wouldn't it be easier if we never had to crack them at all. In some cases, we can because of rapidly available information such as previous data breaches. Um, where was that? However, wouldn't it be okay? In some cases, we okay, blah blah blah. In the next chapter, we will examine how to use OSINT to find information from previous breaches, or to build custom word lists for specific targets. So yeah, um, I love this book. This is a badass book. Um, it's going. It I can already tell where it's going. It's more information knowledge than technical. Now it's gonna do some technical stuff. It's gonna show, and we're gonna do. I've got my Kali Linux pulled up, and in the next video, I want to make this a series because I'm excited about this book. And then in the next video, we're probably gonna set up. We're gonna do some like command line, and we're gonna crack some stuff. We're gonna have to come up with our own little list, not the word list, but maybe we're gonna create a word list and show how it works. And I'm going to maybe use my Metasploit and set up some passwords for it, change the passwords, and see if we can hack that and crack that. Right? I think we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna have to come up with something, creative to do that, but we can still learn. But what I think the most important thing about this book is the knowledge. So it's already teaching me, from what I see, the basic knowledge you need to have, in very basic, trust me, that you need to have, and the basic knowledge that you need to have to understand password cracking. And it's going to get better and better. So why crack when OSINT will do? I'm glad they threw that in there, because you can use open source intelligence techniques to grab passwords and to try the passwords, and you can just run them yourself. Nowadays they have multi-factor authentication and they got all this other stuff, so you got to come up with slicker ways to do it, right? But you know this is going to go into a lot of cool stuff. So if you guys, if you guys, and it's giving you information on how to see if your password has been compromised, which is haveyoubeenpawned.com, a website where you can put in your password, and you can put in your password. What's funny, and they'll tell you if it's been compromised. But I'm gonna tell you right now, don't put in your password in there, man. I mean, you can, but I mean, you gotta make sure that's the right site. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, this is a cool book, and I'm excited about it. And I'm gonna, I already know about all this, but like I said, it's all about repetition. I do martial arts, and in martial arts, you're not learning new stuff constantly. You're learning a little bit of new, but it's incorporating a bunch of old, and repetition on something. Even the basics like this is good. It's because then now it's going to be a solid part of my brain, right? And I might not be a master of it, but I know of it. And if somebody sends me on a task, if I work for them, I will understand what I'm doing, and I'll be able to get the task done with very little more research, because I already understand, I already know what I'm doing. Now I just have to look up a little bit of stuff to get it done, to get the task done from a boss or whatever. So stick with me on this one. This one's going to be really fun. This one is more, I say, this book and me put together, it's going to be a whole nother kind of learning scenario. So we'll learn some technical. I'll make it technical, but we're going to learn, and I'll be able to explain, like I just did to this chapter, a little bit of my insights and what and how it's practical, and other resources that you need to look up, like the encryption books and stuff like that, to get a clearer understanding of what we're doing, right? So I think this is going to be a great series. I'm excited about it. So yeah, so watch out for the next video, and see you next time. That was Hack the File. Enjoy.